Hello there, Gamerinos and Gamerinas. Welcome to UnicornStorm. This is Rady, and today I'm taking a look at Saga of Weil, a 2D side-scrolling adventure game with Souls-like elements. At least according to the game's description. In truth, there's not much Souls-like to be found. Healing is plentiful and you can take quite a lot of hits. Falling off a platform or into a trap only sends you back to the start of the screen, although it does revive all enemies. Losing all of your health sends you back to the last campsite you came across, of which there are 2 or 3 within each stage, and which incidentally heal you fully. Before the concept gets dropped after the first level, and you only get invisible checkpoints every few screens from there onwards. You can attack with your sword or your bow, as long as you have arrows that is, but you don't have to manage your stamina. Well, raising your shield to deflect projectiles or block attacks actually does drain stamina, but it's so little and you have so much that it doesn't really matter and you might not even realize it. But there is a dodge roll, complete with iframes, so I guess it counts as a Souls-like. Even though the greatest challenge so far has been recording the damn game. It just didn't want to get recorded. Either my software couldn't grab it, it only showed a black screen, or the sound was missing, and I couldn't try all too many workarounds because the game itself doesn't offer a lot of options in the settings menu. The mouse didn't work in the menu, and neither did a few of the expected buttons. There are no graphic options and no in-game way to swap between full screen and windowed mode, so it became a bit of a hassle. That said, games aren't made to be recorded, they are made to be played, so my difficulties in getting some footage aren't a strike against the game. But since I had to collect some footage for my critique, I had to come up with some solution, which involved playing the game on the Steam Deck and capturing it there. Which came with its own set of issues. The Steam Deck doesn't cooperate with all my controllers, and the game's not optimized for all kinds of controllers as well. And the working controller changed all my sound settings. But I got it to work, so here we are. First off, the game looks really pleasant. It has nice, colorful pixel art, not the best I've ever seen, but competently made, with enough variation when it comes to enemy designs and tile sets for different levels. And also some amazing and at times incredibly fluid animations. Though sometimes they are hard to gauge. Sometimes the damage box exists longer than the enemy's attack animation, or the defeat animation is the same or at least too similar to the idle animation, so you might take some cheap hits. And then there are instances where the animation is just really cheap, like this lever just changes color upon activation. Not sure if it was a time issue or some weird form of creative vision, maybe a practical joke. I mean, the game is rather lighthearted and isn't afraid to constantly make jokes about all kinds of gaming and fantasy tropes. The game's not only light of heart though, but also light on the story. Actually, the story just strolls along in the background, kinda like the soundtrack, while you just travel from stage to stage. You have a journal that gives you a bit of insight after each chapter, and events are certainly unfolding, but the game doesn't really care about presentation. I guess it's a good thing that it doesn't stop the gameplay for the sake of exposition, but it kinda went too hard in the other direction. And the gameplay isn't strong enough to carry the game on its own. It's an action platformer with awkward platforming and awkward combat. Why is the platforming awkward? Well, first off, you jump by pressing the shoulder button. Yeah, I'm playing this exclusively with controller because I just prefer to control my 2D side-scrollers with a gamepad. But yeah, you jump with L1 and dodge roll with R1, while the face buttons are used for attacking, blocking and opening the inventory. It's a weird control scheme, but nothing you can't get used to after a while. But then there's the fully automatic jumping. So as long as you hold down the jump button, your character keeps on jumping. Jump man, jump! It's not a problem most of the time, but when you jump up to a platform on a higher elevation, you might get fucked over because you technically touched the ground and jumped again. and this game's finicky jumping momentum can catapult you off a ledge rather easily. And the game is rather picky when it comes to when you can grab and hold onto a ledge and when you can't. You also have a lot of unexpected forward momentum when dropping down from a platform, and the camera isn't too fond of showing you what's below you. So it's pretty easy to drop down from somewhere and straight up land in the water or a bottomless pit or some conveniently placed spikes. Your first hurdle with the platforming, though, is stairs. You thought the stairs in Castlevania were devious? Well, these ones are the work of the devil. Go on, try to get up them. Don't know why it doesn't work, it worked before. Now not at all. Yeah, it looks like you can only walk up certain stairs. Other ones you have to jump on and land in the right position for the game to register your desire to actually climb them. Yeah, the game clearly lacks some polish, and I don't mean that as a harsh critique like I would with AAA releases. This is a silly little indie game, a work of passion, someone just wanting to bring their ideas to life, and I can respect that. But the lack of experience or time or resources just led to some silliness. But enough of platforming. Why is the combat awkward? Well, there were some, let's say, unintuitive decisions made for an action platformer. For one, you can only attack or block while standing completely still. Can't walk, can't jump, or your character refuses to swing the sword or raise the shield. Next, for some reason, enemies are invincible shortly after getting hit, so hammering the attack button doesn't really help. But they are also stunned after getting hit, so you can still just wail on them with a tiny amount of timing. This doesn't seem all too intentional. Maybe an oversight or maybe an issue that wasn't worth the effort in fixing it? Enemy movesets also aren't worth talking about that much. Each enemy only has one attack, at least for 3/4 of the game. Maybe in the final level they get more complicated. But they either run or fly past you and swipe at you, or run back and forth and swing at you whenever they get in range, or they shoot off projectiles. And hoo boy, they start attacking you from far off the screen. They begin their assault long before you can see them. It can be a bit annoying, especially when a ranged attack suddenly appears out of nowhere while you're jumping over bottomless pits or deal with other enemies. But it's not too tough. And again, those enemies also only have their one attack. It's a shame because some of the enemies certainly look like they could provide more of a challenge. But alas, they never do. Not even the bosses are an exception from that rule, and their fights aren't any more fun, they just take a lot longer. And I mean a lot longer. Is what I would say if I had encountered more than one single boss fight, and again I played through 3/4 of the game. I guess there will be a final boss because the game advertises 2 boss fights. But yeah, enemies are a non-issue. You just smack them repeatedly, or better yet, just dodge roll past them, because your dodge has a ridiculous amount of iframes, so you'll never get hit by anything. Just try to not roll down a pit, because you can't recover from that. Well, there is one other weird quirk with the combat system, in that your attacks can only ever hit one enemy, no matter how many are in range of your sword. So if you're fighting a troll and some flying thing rushes by, your attack will only hit one of them and the other gets a cheap hit on you. Just more reason to roll past everything. My biggest issue I had, and I'm not sure if it's because of the Steam Deck or some problem with memory leak within the game, but after an hour or so the game begins to stutter and the frame rate decreases drastically, down to 1 frame every 2 or so seconds. It's not fun playing the game that way. A restart usually solves the problem, but this happened to me in the middle of a stage and I didn't want to go back to the last checkpoint. Now, maybe I'm stupid. Scratch that, I'm certainly stupid and might have wasted more time crawling towards the next checkpoint instead of just replaying a few minutes in an acceptable frame rate. It's certainly an issue, but not completely game-breaking, since a simple restart fixes the problem for a while at least, and levels aren't that massively long, so you can quickly get back to where you left off. That said, I can't just wholeheartedly recommend this game. If it were a free game on itch, of course, try it, give feedback, enjoy the nice pixel art. But this game is going to be sold on Steam. I can't find for how much, but anything more than $5 would be too much to ask. There's not much depth to be found, levels drag on for far too long and offer little more than basic and uninspired level design. It looks nice, it has 1 or 2 lines of dialogue that made me chuckle, but that's really it. If you're into smaller indie games, like some people are into student films, then go ahead and have a bit of fun with it. But if you're looking for something more meaningful or polished or challenging, well, there's more than enough out there. But no matter what you do, have a great day. That's it from Rady, and I hope to see you again on the next game.